Now, I want to go over here and talk about this guava mango.
Sounds good.
Well, man, there's precious few fruit left on here. The biggest one I see is right above Chris's head right here.
Yeah, I think there's one over here. Yeah.
There.
Oh,
Is there one that's turning
nice
yellow?
one right there, yeah.
Is this turning yellow?
Yeah, sure is.
All right.
All right.
That's the color that
Team effort.
we look for.
Great.
Now I'll lay this picker up here so at least it's off the ground. We don't step on it by accident.
So this is a pretty tall tree. It likes to grow up.
Well, yeah, there's a lot between the beginnings of getting this and what you see here. Usually, I follow the practice that my dad, Lawrence, did, that he would not graft a tree to reproduce more plants unless he had sampled a fruit and personally approved of it. This is an example of where I didn't do that. I received a phone call from a gentleman that he probably introduced himself, but his name has slipped my mind a long time ago. He was from the north part of Palm Beach County and told me there was a mango tree that they all love the fruit of, and it was going to be destroyed because of widening the road and building a bridge. And it was there at Donald Ross Road, which has now a nice wide road and nice bridge on it. Anyway, he said that tree was going to be destroyed, and they all liked it in the neighborhood, and they called it the peach mango, and he wanted me to save it. Now, so I asked him some number of questions about the fruit. It was past season, so there were no fruit available from the tree, so I could give my own opinion of it. But when he called it peach mango, I just knew of the peach mango that I had grown up with, which in my opinion wasn't worth having because it was such a small little fruit, thin skin, full of fiber, and flavor was nothing to brag about at all. And it was full. You couldn't even use it for rootstock because all of the little embryos in there would make a whole can full of small plants that were not satisfactory for rootstock. I wanted nothing to do with it, but when he told me about the size of it and he considered that it was not fibrous and they all liked it, I thought it's worth taking a twig and letting it grow out and find it for myself. He wanted his mango tree grafted to it, which I did, and I grafted one of my own. Well, I had to wait a few years for my seedling tree to, well, it was a seedling tree. I put the scion on, but once the scion grew, it's no longer a seedling, you know. And it was 3 or 4 years later when the tree fruited. By that time, I'd even forgot where it came from. After looking at the fruit and thinking and realizing, well, then I thought about that experience up there. I thought, well, maybe that's what it is, and it's stirred up enough memory that I'm sure that's where I got this from. I do not know the origin of that tree, whether it grew from seed or whether somebody had imported it from someplace else and grafted it there or whatever, but I just had known the tree was going to be destroyed, and this man didn't want it to be extinct because they valued it so highly. Anyway, whenever my little grafted tree fruited, I was thrilled, and I cut wood from it and put it on a tree growing next to my house. Incidentally, it was a big rootstock. I had planted the seed and was hoping that seed would show me another variety, but it was a big seedling. It hadn't yet fruited. And when I cut the bark to expose the cambium area exposed was about 1 inch wide, which is pretty wide for putting in a little scion. So I just put 2 scions, one right next to each other. And they both live, so that tree has a dual trunk on it. But we chose to come here because there's a little bit of a story to this one that might be of interest. These 2 limbs I added to this tree after my other tree had grown up and begun fruiting. So this is much, it's a few years later than my other tree of it. On the other part of this stump was another variety. And this gets into that black spot problem that has come in recently that has ruined a lot of mangoes. The variety I had on the other side of this tree was one very susceptible to that black bacteria spot, and I cut it off. And when the new shoots came out on it, I took scion wood from my guava side and put on it, so I have some other shoots of the guava coming out over here. Now this is a kit from the old rootstock back here, but here and there and other places are grafts that I have put on of guava, so eventually this entire tree will be of the same variety. And I really like to have only one variety on a stump. It's less confusing of varieties when you're harvesting fruit, and especially important if you're going to take scion wood for reproducing trees. When it comes to the flavor of this, well, everybody has their own body chemistry and their preferences in eating whatever. But one year there was a group of Jamaicans had come up here to eat mangoes here because we were not allowed to let mangoes go anyplace else. We either had to bury them, can them, freeze them, or something else, or eat them. And so that's the year we put up our canopy and invited people to come and eat. And that's another part of the story, but that's how I got started with the canopy, and a picnic table was from that quarantine, as it were, on the mango fruit. Well, this group of Jamaicans was eating fruit, and among the different samples that we had was this variety, and they wanted to know what it was. And I told them the story of how I got it, but I said it's not the peach mango, and I don't know sure what it is. And they were tossing around a lot of different ideas that nobody seemed to get any agreement on. And finally one fellow said, well, to me it tastes like a guava. Well, those Jamaicans knew about guavas, and a lot of us do too. And anyway, I agreed with it, and so did everybody else. So I started calling it guava. Now this is where it gets interesting. Some years later, one of my customers saw the fruit and realized, I said we were calling it guava mango, and he was really interested. He said, I know that mango from India. And I was kind of shocked to hear that. And he said over there they call it paracaca. He said, you look it up on Google. You Google it. Put in there guava mango and see what you find on Google. Sure enough, they had pictures of fruit that looked just like this. And in their language, paracaca translates to guava. Now, it makes me wonder if somebody years back had brought some wood from that part of India, or even a grafted plant, and planted it up there.
Maybe they even a seed and they got lucky.
Perhaps so, I don't know, but I'm glad to have the variety. And the reason that my brother got an interest in it, when he realized that the fruit on this side of the tree were much cleaner than the fruit had been on this side. it was of value because of the cleanliness of the fruit, and he actually liked the flavor a lot too. You know, different people don't agree on flavor, but it's one he liked, and he's put it in production, so there should be trees available already grafted of the variety, and we're still calling it Guava mango because we don't know better. So I just invite a person to get a sample when they can. I'm short of fruit this season because I sold so much budwood to my brother, but that won't be permanent. If fruit bears, the tree bears fruit real good, and one of the things I noted particularly on the other tree as it grew up and sent out limbs, instead of them being limbs that branched off up like this, they branched out more at 90-degree angles. It made it really nice if you want a tree to climb in, you know, where you have a footing for it and have to climb a tree to go and pick the fruit. Anyway, that's about all I have to say about it.
We have a new taste tester, Gary, and he loves mangoes and has never tried this variety, and I'm not telling him what the name of it is. So he can tell me what he thinks of it without even hearing the name.
That's good. That's good.
Does it remind you of anything?
As far as other mangoes I've had, actually, this actually tastes closer to the Bailey's.
It doesn't taste like any other fruit that you have.
Oh, you mean? Oh, absolutely. This is wonderful. Do you have another piece, please?
No. So, I guess I'll tell you the name. This is known as Guava mango. So, I'm tasting a little bit of guava flavor. I mean, guava is such a powerful flavor, and this is not as powerful as that flavor is, but it's just very different from all other mangoes, I think. There you go.
Well, just to be truthful, mango is one fruit I just haven't had a chance to eat much of, which is why I probably didn't taste guava. Excuse me, guava. So I just not really familiar with guava. But maybe after eating this, I will be.
You'll get a sudden hankering for guava. It's hard to rate it though, because I mean it has a great texture and it's juicy and sweet, of course, and has a very unusual flavor that you don't get in other mangoes. So it's all personal preference as far as, you know, like how important it is or whatever. But I'm glad that you liked it.